Hey there, this is Katie from the Jane team. Thanks for letting me stop by the PT on Ice Daily Show to share a bit about Jane with you. Jane is a practice management software designed to be helpful to you, our PT community, no matter where or how you practice. Whether that's training sessions, classes, or one-on-one telehealth calls, Jane offers a flexible and efficient way to book clients into your schedule. With Jane, you can assign treatments to specific practitioners or create classes that your clients can book themselves into from your online booking site. Jane makes it easy for you to manage and grow your practice. If you're curious to learn more, head on over to jane.app/physical therapy. And don't forget, you can mention the PT on Ice Daily Show in your sign-up notes for a 1-month grace period to get started with Jane.
Instagram, good morning. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. My name is Julie Brower, and I am a TA for the Older Adult Division. And that is alongside our lead faculty, Christina Previtt and Dustin Jones. So it's Wednesday. Everyone knows that is Jerry on Ice Day, so we rap about all things older adults. So first and foremost, we'll go over a couple of courses that are coming up, both live and online. So on the road, you can catch us 2 places on April 2nd. We are in Fishers, Indiana and Portland, Oregon. And then on April 9th, we are going to be in Duluth, Minnesota. And then for online, our next 8-week cohort starts on April 27th. So as always, if you guys have any questions about online versus live courses, just DM any of us and we will be happy to answer any questions. Okay, so we're going to dive into our topic today. When it comes to sit to stand training for older adults, do we go for load or depth? Now, if you are part of the ICE crew, you already know this answer. Always, it's and not or, right? And I'm totally preaching to the crowd here when I say that driving true strength adaptations for older adults is absolutely critical to build reserve, build resiliency, stave off frailty, decrease chronic disease burden, improve functional outcomes, ADL performance, etc., etc. The list goes on and on. We know that in order to drive those strength adaptations, we have to be at least 60% of our 1 rep max when we're loading our patients up. We have to add load. However, when it comes to depth, we also know that for older adults, depth is what is really meaningful. Older adults are not coming to us to say, my goal is to squat 80% of my 1 rep max. That's not happening. They're telling us that they want to be able to get up from their toilet without help. They want to ditch the lift recliner. They want to be able to have the confidence that they're going to go out to dinner with their families, and regardless of where the hostess sits them, they're going to be able to get up out of that chair without their loved one having to boost them up into standing. Depth is very meaningful. The difficult thing here is where the state of our exercise prescription is. There are a ton of us who are programming mini squats for 8 weeks and barely even touching any full depth sit to stand training. So if we think about strength and conditioning principles, we're totally disregarding specificity here, which we know is very, very important to drive that adaptation. We are not going to do mini squats for 8 weeks and expect that that is going to translate to an older adult being able to get up from a standard chair on their own. We're not going to build reserve and resiliency by doing mini squats for 8 weeks. So there's also a lot of us who are doing sit to stand training, which is wonderful. However, most of us are probably not adding any load. or we're not even increasing the intensity in any way. So in this case, we are missing the principle of progressive overload. Without progressive overload, we are not going to have enough of a stimulus to drive positive adaptation. Now, there are some individuals, and I've talked about this a lot on my past few podcasts, that there are some patients where load is not going to be in the cards. It's just not. Maybe we're only getting to sit to stand training, because when we're triaging what's important, getting this person to just get out of the recliner more than 3 times a day is a huge win. And we're triaging that. We're trying to manage their chronic disease, decrease their chronic disease burden, reduce that hospital readmission risk. There's just other things that are more important. That fitness component, that adding load is not going to be our priority. And that is okay. There are plenty of folks who are going to be there. However, if we are not going to even try to load these sick folks up, we're not even giving them the opportunity to show us what they're capable of. So the key here is that we need to at least try, okay? So the other thing here with sit to stand training, where a lot of us, this is where we're at without adding load, is we cannot stop there, okay? We cannot stop there. It is a good place to start, and like I said, some folks aren't going to go past that, but for a patient who is discharged from the hospital, they're sick, they're deconditioned, y'all, like, we're not going to sit to stand train someone from sick to robust. It's not going to happen. What happens when an older adult needs to lift an external object in addition to doing a sit to stand? If they're carrying their dinner plate, a laundry basket, their little fluffy white dog, what happens then? We didn't prepare them for that. What happens when they have a medical stressor? What if they have a CHF exacerbation? And we only prepared this older adult to be able to lift their own body weight out of a chair. Now they have a CHF exacerbation. They have increased their weight by 8 pounds because of fluid accumulation. They're not getting out of that chair because we did not prepare them. We did not build their strength, their reserve, their resiliency. So that is the why. That is the why behind the fact that we have to add load. We have to add load. But we also need to concentrate on depth. They are both important. So that's the why. So then it comes down to, okay, how do we do this? How do we attack both of these things? First things first, clinicians, get yourself some weights, all right? Pull the trigger, buy some dumbbells, buy some kettlebells, get them in your car. That's just first things first, okay? Take that step, get you some weights. Secondly, we need to decrease the barrier of us utilizing these weights. So many of you have probably been in this situation where you walk into the door and you realize, man, like my patient could totally squat with some weight today. But my weights are all the way back in my car. I don't want to stop my session. I don't have time. I don't want to go back out and get them. So they just sit in our car. Decrease this barrier. Make it convenient. Get a backpack, okay? Those weights are not going to fit in the medical bag that our home health companies give us. And if they do, I would be terrified they're going to break and you're going to have a weight dropped on your toe. Get a backpack. Put the weights in there and have them on your person all the time. Walk into the door day one and have them so that if it's appropriate, you can use them. The second thing is that we need to decrease the fear surrounding weight And we're gonna do that with intentional and graded exposure. So what I mean by that is if you're carrying these weights in day one, you have them, you're making them visible to the patient. You may not use them day one, but you're showing them, hey, like these are some pieces of equipment that we can use to get you stronger. And a lot of times they may look down at that dumbbell and be like, oh Lord, honey, no way, I ain't lifting that, right? Like we've been there a lot of times. That happens to me about once a week. What you can do in that case is when their eyes go wide and they seem like they're very fearful of this weight, say, look, this is a weight. Think of this like a laundry basket that you have to carry, or a bag of dog food that you may have to lift. This is basically what this is. It's just condensed into an object that makes it way easier for you to carry than some of those odd objects that you're carrying around all day. So you're exposing them day one, and you're relating it to a meaningful activity. And if they continue to see this weight from day one, it's going to be less scary to them. You don't have to start with, okay, you're gonna squat with this weight. You can start by, we're gonna do some bicep curls with a dumbbell, or they're gonna do a static carry or a static hold. You don't have to go right for the loaded squat. Okay, so next, let's talk about depth. Let's just talk about that sit to stand training. My number one goal for this is to make that sit to stand easier, to make it feel lighter. Because the sit to stand can feel so taxing. It's so difficult for so many of our older adults. So what can I do to keep the depth? We know depth is important, so what can I do to keep the depth but make the movement feel easier, make it feel lighter? What can I clean up? Can I put them in shoes versus their hospital socks that will help out with that lack of dorsiflexion that a lot of our older adults have? Can I increase the stance width so it puts a little bit more demand on the hips versus having to have that ankle ability and the demand on the knees to come forward? Can I teach them how to hinge a little bit better so that it creates the body mechanics for them to be able to more easily stand up versus what we see all the time is when they try and stand up with a very upright trunk? Can I take them and get them off of their couch or recliner that they're sitting in and put them in a standard chair that's more firm, and they will be able to stand from that surface a little bit easier? So I'm trying to clean it up without me giving assistance to boost them up. How can I make that sit to stand easier? And in many cases, what I'm going for is that if that sit to stand, if they're rating that is really, really difficult, not that we can't see that with our eyes, but if they're rating that, if we're using RPE like a 9 to 10, can I clean that up by altering mechanics a little bit and coaching them so that maybe that sit to stand feels like a 6 to a 7 instead? How can I make it feel lighter? So that is going after depth, cleaning that up. Now, how do we add load? A lot of people are thinking like, my God, most of my patients can't get up out of a chair without significant upper extremity support or boosting assist. Why the heck would I add load? Guys, adding the load is actually the easier part. It's actually like the low-hanging fruit here. So what we do is just elevate the surface. Like, it's so simple, right? We elevate the surface they are sitting on. We build up their seat. So a lot of us, like, the first thing that comes to mind is like putting pillows on the seat. I would suggest if you are in a recliner or if you're in a couch and you can take the cushions off, I would suggest using blankets or towels. If you have pillows that are more flat versus like a decorative couch pillow, putting them under the couch cushion. Things can get a little dicey if we just put pillows on top of seats, and they are gonna create a big instability issue, which we don't want, unless that's what we're going for when we can progress and now we're sit to stand from an unstable surface. But put them underneath the couch cushions if you can. Now, you need to track this, and it needs to be objective. So, are you counting how many blankets you're putting under there? Are you counting how many pillows? Maybe if you're starting from a lift recliner, are you measuring how high up the lift recliner is at? Are you measuring where that couch cushion is compared to without the blankets and pillows underneath them? Find a way to make this objective. And what you're gonna do is you got that, let's say it's a 15-pound dumbbell next to you. You're going to play with the height of the chair, building the height up, and the load to find the appropriate dosage. So what this can look like is you build up with some pillows, you're trying to find a height where they can sit to stand without any load pretty easily. Feels good. Then you can start to add some load. So let's say I give them that 15-pound dumbbell, I have them at a certain height, and I'm like, all right, go for as many as you possibly can, sit to stand with this dumbbell. And they whip out 15 reps. And guys, you're gonna notice that they're gonna blow your minds with this. You would assume this is an older adult who can barely stand up from the couch on their own is gonna be able to take a 15-pound dumbbell and sit to stand with it from an elevated height, and it looks like a piece of cake. And many times they're gonna say, that was way easier lifting this weight than getting up from the couch without any weight. So typically, if that's day one, this is the first time we're doing this, and they did 15, we know that we probably underdosed them, right? Because if we want to find an estimated 1 rep max, we want the amount of times they can lift that weight to be 10 or under. However, underdosing in the beginning is fine, right? They feel badass, they just lifted that weight 15 times. You can start there, but we need to progress quickly. So what we can do is we can either give them more weight or decrease the height of that recliner. Take those pillows out from underneath the cushion to make it harder and keep the same weight. So then we test them again. Maybe this is the second day. And we say, all right, lift this weight as many times as you can. Maybe they're only able to lift it 8 times and they reach muscular fatigue. They rate it as extremely difficult, RPE 8 to 9. Okay, now we're in the right dosage that we want. So at that point, we know that they lifted a 15-pound weight for 8 reps. We can use a 1 rep max calculator that you can have an app on your phone or just Google it, and we can put that in and we can find out that their 1 rep max is around 18.6 pounds. I'm reading that directly from when I looked it up on my phone 15 minutes ago. So if we know that 18.6 pounds is their 1 rep max, when we're deciding how much weight we want to give them, we know we have to be at least 60% of that. At least 60% of 18.6 is around 11 pounds. So that gives us our minimum. And then we can work from there. We can start with 11 pounds. We can increase to 15. We can mess with the height. We want to stay within that appropriate dosage. Now, if we're gonna put this together, and I will work on a sit to stand from full depth, and I will work on loaded sit to stands in the same day. Typically when I'm designing a workout like this, I'm going to have them start with doing sit to stands from a standard chair or their couch, so I'm working on that full depth. Then I will have a upper extremity exercise in the middle. So I can have them do rows. I can have them do a seated overhead press, right? They're gonna be taxed from those sit to stands from the couch, put them in seated, get some upper body work done. Then I will move them over to the elevated seat, load them up with the dumbbell, and have them get after that. So that's how you can put the two together and not completely toast the legs by breaking it up with some upper body in the middle. The key here though, you guys, is that you're getting after this day one if you can. You're exposing them to that weight. You're making it not fearful. You're making that dumbbell not a scary thing. You're addressing that sit to stand, trying to clean that up to make that easier. You are also dialing in that dosage for a loaded sit to stand. You're doing this as soon as you possibly can. Build that therapeutic relationship right away. Get after it, not at week 4, 5, 6. Get after it week 1. And then you can start to build from there. Use those principles of progressive overload. Are you going to increase the load? Are you going to decrease the amount of pillows that are underneath that seat? Are you making sure that they still feel the intensity is difficult or very difficult? With that sit to stand, are you going to start to add in maybe a power aspect? So you're increasing the speed of going from sitting to standing. This is how you combine the two, knowing that both are incredibly critical for older adults to reach meaningful goals and to improve their strength, which is going to lead to them becoming a more robust human being. It's the gateway drug if you load them up early in home health that they want to go to the gym and they're open to that idea. You've got to get after it right away. Okay. Go ahead, and if you guys have questions about any of that, if you have comments, if you want to talk about how you have incorporated sit to stand and load in the home health setting, I would love to hear your experiences, your stories, suggestions, advice, all of the above. With that, have an awesome rest of your Wednesday, guys. Talk to you next time.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.